Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the HSV Horizon, watching the stars through the main window. The year was 2387, and this was humanity's first mission beyond their home galaxy. Jake had been chosen to lead this historic journey because he was calm under pressure and never gave up when things got tough. The Horizon was not a warship. It was built for exploration, with powerful engines and the best sensors humanity could make. The crew of 200 people included scientists, engineers, and diplomats. They had come to the Andromeda Galaxy to meet new species and make friends. "Captain, we're picking up signals," said Lisa Park, the chief science officer. She was a brilliant woman who spoke 6 languages and had studied alien cultures for 20 years. "The signals are definitely artificial. There's a civilization nearby." Jake nodded. "Good. Send them our friendship message. Let them know we come in peace." Ryan Bell, the tactical officer, looked worried. "Sir, I'm reading massive energy signatures. Whatever's out there, they have some serious firepower." "Stay calm, Ryan," Jake said. "We're not here to fight, we're here to make friends." Katie Lopez, the chief engineer, was busy at her station. She was young but incredibly smart, and she could fix anything. "Captain, the alien ships are approaching fast. I count at least 50 vessels." On the main screen, the alien fleet appeared. The ships were sleek and dangerous-looking, painted in dark colors with sharp edges. They moved in perfect formation like a pack of hunters. "Incoming transmission," Lisa announced. The screen flickered and an alien face appeared. The creature had 4 eyes, sharp teeth, and scales that gleamed like metal. When it spoke, its voice was deep and threatening. "Primitive beings," the alien said. "I am War Commander Thaxel of the Zephyrian Collective. You have entered our territory without permission. This is a crime punishable by death." Jake stepped forward, keeping his voice steady. "I'm Captain Jake Morrison of the human vessel, Horizon. We didn't know this was your territory. We come in peace and want to establish friendly relations." Thaxel laughed, a harsh sound that made the crew uncomfortable. "Peace? You weak creatures think you can bargain with the mighty Zephyrians? We have conquered 1,000 worlds. Your pathetic ship will make a fine trophy." "We don't want to fight," Jake said. "There's no need for violence. We can work together, share knowledge, help each other." "Silence," Thaxel roared. "You will surrender your vessel immediately. Your crew will become our slaves. Your technology will belong to us. Refuse, and we will destroy you slowly." Jake looked around the bridge. His crew was scared, but they trusted him. He had never let them down before, and he wouldn't start now. "I'm sorry," Jake said calmly. "We can't do that. We came here in peace, but we won't surrender to bullies." Thaxel's eyes blazed with anger. "Then you will die like the fools you are. Attack. Show these humans what happens when they defy the Zephyrian Collective." The alien ships opened fire. Energy beams and missiles filled the space around the Horizon. The human ships shook as the shields absorbed the impact. "Shields down to 60%, Ryan shouted. "We can't take much more of this." Jake's mind raced. The Horizon wasn't built for combat, but his crew was resourceful. Humans had always found ways to survive when the odds were against them. "Katie, what can you do with the mining equipment?" he asked. Katie's eyes lit up. "Give me 5 minutes, Captain, I have an idea." While Katie worked, Lisa was busy at her station. "Captain, I'm analyzing their attack patterns. They're overconfident. They think we're helpless." "Let them think that," Jake said. "Ryan, can you target their command ship?" "Yes, sir, but our weapons are too weak to hurt them." "Not our regular weapons," Jake smiled. "Katie, how's that surprise coming?" "Almost ready, Captain," Katie called out. She had connected the mining lasers to the main power grid and boosted their output beyond safe limits. "This is going to be dangerous. If we overload the system, we could blow up." "Better to die fighting than live as slaves," Jake said. The Zephyrian ships closed in, preparing for the final assault. Thaxel appeared on screen again, grinning with victory. "Surrender now, humans, and your death will be quick," he said. "Have a better idea," Jake replied. "Katie, now." The mining lasers fired, but they weren't the same weak tools anymore. Katie had turned them into weapons that could cut through the strongest armor. The beams sliced through 3 Zephyrian ships, like they were made of paper. The aliens were shocked. Their shields, which could stop the most powerful weapons, were useless against the modified mining lasers. "Impossible!" Thaxel screamed. "How did they do that?" But the humans weren't done. Lisa had been studying the alien formation and found their weakness. "Ryan, target the ships in the center. If we take them out, the others will lose coordination." Ryan fired the mining lasers again. More alien ships exploded. The perfect Zephyrian formation fell apart as the survivors tried to figure out what was happening. Katie kept working, turning every tool on the ship into a weapon. The cargo loaders became missile launchers. The communication arrays became jamming devices. Even the food processors were rigged to create chemical explosives. The Zephyrians had never seen anything like it. They were used to fighting enemies who used the same tactics and weapons for thousands of years. But humans were different. They adapted, improvised, and found new solutions in seconds. "All ships retreat," Thaxel ordered, but it was too late. The humans had turned their exploration ship into a nightmare. Every system was now a weapon. Every crew member was now a warrior. They fought with a determination that terrified the aliens. Lisa coordinated the attack, calculating the exact moment to strike each target. Katie kept the weapons running, pushing the ship's systems beyond their limits. Ryan made every shot count, never missing his target. In 30 minutes, the mighty Zephyrian fleet was destroyed. 50 warships, each more powerful than the Horizon, were nothing but floating debris. Only Thaxel's command ship survived, and it was badly damaged. The war commander appeared on screen again, but his arrogance was gone. He looked afraid. "This is impossible," he whispered. "You're just primitives. How did you defeat us?" Jake looked at him with cold eyes. "We came here in peace. We offered friendship. You chose war. This is what happens when you mistake kindness for weakness." "Please," Thaxel begged. "Spare us. We surrender." "You didn't give us that choice," Jake said. "But we're not like you. We don't kill helpless enemies. Take your damaged ship and go. Tell your people what happened here. Tell them that humans are not to be trifled with." As the Zephyrian ship limped away, Jake turned to his crew. They had done the impossible. They had defeated a superior force through courage, intelligence, and teamwork. "Captain," Lisa said, "I'm picking up transmissions from all over the galaxy. Word of our victory is spreading fast." Jake nodded. "Good. Maybe other species will think twice before attacking peaceful explorers." But deep down, Jake knew this was just the beginning. The humans had announced their presence to the galaxy in the most dramatic way possible. From now on, everyone would know that humanity was not to be underestimated. The Horizon continued its journey through the stars, but everything had changed. The crew that had left Earth as explorers and diplomats had become something else entirely. They had become legends, and across 3 galaxies, aliens would whisper the story of the day a single human ship destroyed an entire fleet. The day when humanity proved that they were not just another species to be conquered, but a force that could not be stopped. 6 months after the Zephyrian defeat, the news had spread across 3 galaxies like wildfire. On Nexus Prime, the largest trading station in known space, alien merchants gathered in dark corners to whisper about the human incident. Each time, the story was told. It grew more incredible, but the basic facts remained the same. A single human ship had destroyed 50 Zephyrian warships. Commander Steve Phillips sat in the captain's chair of the HSV Guardian, another human exploration vessel. Unlike Jake Morrison's ship, the Guardian was newer and carried more advanced equipment. Steve was a calm man in his 40s who had served in Earth's Space Navy for 20 years before joining the exploration program. "Sir, we're approaching the crystalline hegemony border," announced his navigator, a young woman named Amy Chen. "They're requesting we stop for inspection." The crystalline hegemony was famous throughout the galaxies for their legal system. They were a species that looked like living glass, with transparent bodies that sparkled in the light. For over 2,000 years, they had used their complex laws to control trade and expansion in their region of space. "Open a channel," Steve ordered. The main screen showed a crystalline being whose body gleamed like a diamond. When it spoke, its voice sounded like wind chimes. I am Arbiter Velnash of the Crystalline Hegemony. You are humans, are you not? We have heard interesting stories about your species. I'm Commander Steve Phillips. We're on a peaceful exploration mission. We'd be happy to follow your inspection procedures. Velnash's crystalline features shifted in what might have been a smile. Inspection? Oh no, Commander, we have something much more sophisticated in mind. You see, your vessel contains technology that violates 17 different hegemony trade laws. Under our legal code, we must confiscate your ship and imprison your crew. Steve frowned. That's impossible. We haven't broken any laws. We haven't even traded with anyone in your space. But ignorance is no excuse under hegemony law, Velnash replied. However, we are not unreasonable. You may contest these charges in our courts. The trial will only take 15 to 20 years to complete. Dr. Helen Carter, the Guardian's legal officer, stepped forward. She was a small woman with sharp eyes who had studied law on 12 different worlds. Commander, may I handle this? Steve nodded. Helen had warned him about this possibility. The crystalline hegemony was known for trapping explorers with impossible legal situations. Arbiter Velnash, Helen said politely. I request formal legal representation for my crew under Hegemony Law, Section 4.47, subsection 12. Velnash looked surprised. You know our legal codes? I hold degrees in 17 different legal systems, including yours, Helen replied calmly. I also invoke the right of counter-accusation under your own law. I accuse the hegemony of violation of the Universal Trade Compact, the Rights of Passage Treaty, and the Convention on Peaceful Exploration. The crystalline being's body flickered with confusion. Impossible. We wrote those laws. We cannot violate them, Helen smiled. Actually, you can, and you have. For the past 50 years, you've been charging illegal fees to explorers, confiscating ships without proper cause, and imprisoning crews without fair trials. I have evidence. Evidence? Velnash stammered. Your own court records, Helen said, pulling up documents on her tablet. According to Hegemony Law 2156, all legal proceedings must be recorded and made available for review. Your records show a pattern of corruption and illegal seizures. Velnash was silent for a long moment. The crystalline hegemony prided themselves on their perfect legal system. They had never been challenged like this before. Even if this were true, Velnash said carefully, you cannot prove intent to commit fraud. Actually, I can, Helen replied. Your own communication logs show deliberate coordination between judges to target specific species. Under your law 3082, this constitutes criminal conspiracy. The other crystalline officials on the bridge looked panicked. They had been caught in their own legal web by a human who understood their system better than they did. Furthermore, Helen continued, under the Mutual Defense Clause of the Universal Trade Compact, any attempt to illegally seize our vessel constitutes an act of war against the Human Federation. Steve watched in amazement as Helen systematically destroyed the hegemony's legal arguments. She quoted laws that the crystalline beings had forgotten they had written. She found loopholes that they never knew existed. I propose a settlement, Helen said finally. The hegemony will provide our ship with full navigation rights through your space, compensate us for the delay you've caused, and reform your court system to prevent future corruption. In exchange, we won't file formal charges that would destroy your government. Velnash's crystalline body was flickering rapidly now, a sign of extreme stress. Your terms are acceptable, he said quietly. After the transmission ended, Steve looked at Helen with new respect. How did you do that? I studied their legal system for months before we entered their space, Helen explained. The crystalline hegemony thinks they're clever, but their laws have so many contradictions that any decent lawyer can tie them in knots. Meanwhile, on the other side of the galaxy, Captain Tony Rodriguez was facing a different kind of challenge aboard the HSV Defiance. Tony was a tough man from Texas who had grown up in a military family. His ship was smaller than the Guardian, but his crew was just as determined. Captain, we're surrounded, reported pilot Amy Johnson. She was a young woman with quick reflexes and nerves of steel. "I count over 100 ships, but they're not like anything I've seen before." The ships surrounding them were organic, looking more like giant insects than spacecraft. They pulsed with a sickly green light and moved in perfect unison. "This is the hive mind swarm," announced Dr. Greg Foster, the ship's medic and biologist. "I've read about them. They're a collective consciousness. Every individual shares the same mind." A voice spoke directly into their minds, bypassing their communication systems entirely. It was cold and mechanical, like a computer trying to sound human. "We are the swarm. You are individuals. This is inefficient. You will be absorbed. Your consciousness will join ours. Resistance is futile." Tony felt the alien presence trying to push into his mind. It was like ice water flowing through his thoughts, trying to wash away everything that made him human. "Not today," Tony growled, fighting back against the mental invasion. The swarm was confused. They had assimilated thousands of species over the millennia. Individual minds always broke down when faced with the collective. But the humans were different. Amy Johnson felt the swarm trying to control her piloting, but she refused to let them. "I fly this ship," she said through gritted teeth. "Not you." Dr. Foster was experiencing something amazing. Instead of his mind being absorbed, he was somehow pushing back into the swarm's collective consciousness. "Captain, I think I'm infecting them with individuality." All across the human ship, the crew was resisting the swarm's mental attack. But more than that, they were fighting back. Each human mind was like a virus in the collective, spreading thoughts of freedom and independence. We cannot process this." The swarm's voice was breaking up. "Individual thoughts. Contaminating the collective. Impossible." The organic ships around them began to break formation. For the first time in their history, individual swarm members were thinking for themselves. Some were questioning orders. Others were wondering what it would be like to make their own choices. "What have you done to us?" the swarm demanded. "We've given you something you never had before," Tony replied. "Free will." Chaos erupted in the swarm fleet. Ships that had moved in perfect coordination for millennia were suddenly flying in different directions. Some were trying to maintain the collective, while others were exploring their newfound individuality. "This is unacceptable," the swarm screamed. "We must retreat and purge the contamination." The organic ships fled, but the damage was done. Entire sectors of the swarm were now thinking as individuals. Their perfect collective was broken forever. Back on Nexus Prime, the alien merchants had new stories to whisper about. The humans had defeated the crystalline hegemony at their own game of law. They had broken the hive mind swarm by giving them individuality. Each victory was different, but the pattern was always the same. The humans didn't just win their battles. They found ways to defeat their enemies using the very things those enemies thought made them superior. They turned the Zephyrians' aggression against them, the crystalline's legal system against them, and the swarm's collective mind against them. A Vorthon trader named Kexel sat in his favorite bar, telling anyone who would listen about the human ships. "They're not like other species," he said, his tentacles waving nervously. "Other races, you can predict them. You know how they'll fight, how they'll negotiate. But humans? They become whatever they need to become." His drinking companion, a Nexari with multiple eyes, nodded gravely. "I heard about a human ship that faced down the entire battle fleet by turning their cargo hold into a weapons factory. In 30 minutes, they built weapons that shouldn't even be possible." "That's nothing," Kexel replied. "I heard about humans who convinced two enemy species to stop fighting each other and work together instead. They didn't use weapons or threats. They just talked to them." In the heart of the Triangulum Galaxy, deep within the massive space station known as Council Central, Representative Vexenari sat in his private office reviewing classified files. Vexenari was a Keltharian, a species known for their intelligence and careful analysis. His 6 arms moved quickly across multiple data screens while his large eyes processed information faster than most computers. The Galactic Council governed over 3,000 species across 3 galaxies. They had maintained peace for over 5,000 years through careful diplomacy and the threat of their combined military might. But now, something was changing. That balance of power. Computer, display all reports involving humans from the past year, Vexenari commanded. The holographic display filled with hundreds of files. Each one told a story that should have been impossible. Vexenari had been studying these reports for weeks, trying to understand what made the humans so different. His assistant, a floating creature called Zephyra, drifted into the room. Representative, the Intelligence Committee is ready for your briefing. Send them the preliminary report, Vexenari said. But tell them the real meeting will have to wait. I need more time to understand what we're dealing with. Vexenari opened the first file. It was Agent Crix's report from the Zephyrian sector. Crix was one of their best intelligence operatives, a shapeshifter who could blend in with any species. The human ship Horizon engaged 50 Zephyrian warships and achieved total victory, Crix had written. But the method was unlike anything in our military databases. They converted mining equipment into weapons within minutes. Their engineer, Katie Lopez, somehow increased power output by 400% without destroying their ship. This should have been impossible with their technology. Vexenari moved to the next report. This one came from Agent Thys, who specialized in legal and political intelligence. The human legal officer Helen Carter defeated the entire crystalline legal system using their own laws, Thys reported. She had memorized thousands of legal codes and found contradictions that the crystallines never knew existed. More disturbing, she seemed to understand their legal philosophy better than they did themselves. The pattern was becoming clear. The humans didn't just win their battles. They somehow became better than their opponents at whatever those opponents did best. Vexenari opened Agent Morden's report about the hive mind incident. The swarm attempted to assimilate the human crew of the ship Defiance, Morden had written. Instead of being absorbed, the humans somehow infected the collective consciousness with individuality. Entire sectors of the swarm are now operating as independent units. Their civilization is fragmenting. The humans didn't just resist the swarm, they destroyed everything that made the swarm what it was. Each report told the same story. The humans faced impossible odds and found ways to not just survive, but to completely reverse the situation. They turned their enemies' greatest strengths into weaknesses. Vexenari pulled up another file. This one was about engineer Dan Mitchell, from the human ship Explorer. Dan had been captured by the Mechanic Empire, a species that had spent 10,000 years perfecting their technology. They thought they could learn from human engineering by taking Dan apart. Instead, Dan had escaped by reverse engineering their security systems in 3 hours. Technology that had taken the Mechanic Empire centuries to develop, Dan understood and improved upon in an afternoon. He not only freed himself, but also upgraded their entire security network, making it completely loyal to him instead of them. Impossible, Vexenari muttered, but the evidence was overwhelming. Another report described diplomat Claire Adams, who had ended a war that had lasted for 800 years. 2 species called the Flame Dancers and the Ice Walkers had been fighting since before humans had discovered fire. Their hatred ran so deep that they would rather die than make peace. Claire had spent 3 days talking to both sides. She didn't threaten them or bribe them. She simply talked. By the end of those 3 days, both species had not only agreed to peace but had formed an alliance with humanity. They now considered humans their closest friends. How does someone convince ancient enemies to become allies in 3 days? Vexenari wondered. He opened the file about Soldier Pete Jackson. Pete had been on leave, visiting a colony world when it was attacked by raiders. The raiders had superior numbers, better weapons, and faster ships. The colony had no defense and was about to be destroyed. Pete Jackson was just one man with a standard sidearm and a communicator. But he had organized the entire colony's defense. Farmers became soldiers. Teachers became tacticians. Children became messengers. Under Pete's leadership, the colony not only survived, but captured the entire raider fleet. The raiders were now working for the colony, helping to rebuild what they had tried to destroy. They claimed that Pete Jackson had shown them a better way to live. Vexenari's head was spinning. Every report showed the same impossible pattern. Humans didn't just adapt to situations, they transformed them completely. He pulled up the most recent report filed just yesterday. It was about Captain Lucy Burns and her ship, the Voyager. Lucy had encountered the Void Cult, a religious group that worshipped emptiness and death. They believed that all life was an insult to the universe and must be destroyed. The Void Cult had been trying to convert other species for millennia, but their philosophy was so dark that few beings could accept it. When they met the humans, they expected easy converts. Humans, after all, were known for their violence and destructive potential. Instead, Captain Burns had spent hours talking with their high priest. She listened to their philosophy, and then explained why she disagreed, not with anger or condemnation, but with genuine curiosity and respect. By the time their conversation was over, the high priest had renounced the Void Cult. He declared that if beings like Lucy Burns existed, then life was worth preserving. The entire cult disbanded, and its members became explorers and healers instead of destroyers. They converted a death cult to a life-affirming philosophy through conversation. Vexnari said aloud, "How is this possible?" His computer chimed with an incoming priority message. It was from Agent Kelthar stationed near human space. Representative Vexnari, the message began, "I have been observing human colonies for 6 months. I believe I may have discovered the source of their abilities. The humans call it education and curiosity. Every human child is taught to question everything, to solve problems, and to never give up. They are trained from birth to adapt and overcome challenges." Vexnari read further. "But this is not the strangest part. The humans actively seek out problems to solve. They enjoy challenges. Where other species avoid difficulties, humans embrace them. They seem to become stronger when faced with impossible situations." The message continued, "I have also observed that humans form emotional bonds with other species very quickly. They genuinely care about the welfare of beings they have just met. This is not a weakness as we initially thought. It is their greatest strength. Other species trust them because they can sense this genuine care." Vexnari leaned back in his chair. The pattern was clear now. Humans didn't win through superior technology or overwhelming force. They won through empathy, adaptability, and an unusual ability to find creative solutions to impossible problems. But this raised a terrifying question. If humans could defeat the Zephyrian war machine, outsmart the crystalline legal system, and break the hive mind collective, what couldn't they do? His computer chimed again. This time it was an emergency alert from the Defense Committee. All council members report to emergency session. The Zephyrian Collective, Void Hunters, and Quantum Syndicate have formed a military alliance. Target, human space. Threat level, maximum. Vexnari felt a chill run through his body. Those 3 powers represented the largest military forces in known space. Together they commanded tens of thousands of warships. If they were working together to destroy humanity, it could only mean one thing. They were afraid. The greatest military powers in 3 galaxies were so terrified of what humans might become that they were willing to break 5,000 years of peace to stop them. As Vexnari made his way to the emergency session, he wondered if even this unprecedented alliance would be enough. The humans had already proven that they could turn any situation to their advantage. Maybe the real question wasn't whether the alliance could defeat the humans. Maybe the question was what the humans would do to them when they tried. In the council chambers, representatives from 3,000 species gathered in worried silence. Everyone had heard the stories about human ships. Everyone knew that something was changing in the galaxy. But as Vexnari looked around the room, he realized that very few understood what that change really meant. The humans weren't just another species expanding through space. They were something entirely new, a force that could reshape the very nature of galactic civilization. The vote was unanimous. The council would remain neutral in the coming conflict. But privately, many representatives were already making plans to contact the humans. Because if there was one thing that 5,000 years of galactic politics had taught them, it was this. When change comes, it's better to be on the right side of it. And something told Vexenari that the humans were definitely the right side to be on. Deep in the secret military base known as Fortress Void, War Marshal Kretak stood before the largest holographic display ever built. The massive alien looked like a cross between a dragon and a machine, with metal plates covering his scarred hide. His 3 eyes glowed red as he studied the battle plans that had taken months to create. Around the circular chamber, representatives from 3 of the most powerful military forces in known space watched in silence. The Zephyrian Collective had brought their best warships. The Void Hunters had contributed their deadliest assault vessels. The Quantum Syndicate had provided their most advanced technology. Together they commanded 10,000 ships. It was the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history. "The target is here," Kretak announced, pointing to a spot on the star map. The human colony ship New Horizon. Intelligence reports indicate it carries 50,000 human civilians to establish a new colony world. Commander Thexel, the Zephyrian who had survived the encounter with Jake Morrison's ship, stepped forward. "War Marshal, why target civilians? Should we not attack their military vessels?" Kretak's mechanical laugh echoed through the chamber. "Because humans are different, Commander. Their military ships are dangerous, yes. But their true strength comes from their people. Destroy a ship full of human families and we break their spirit. Show the galaxy that humans can be killed like anyone else." General Voxtar of the Void Hunters nodded agreement. His species looked like living shadows with glowing yellow eyes. "The humans think they are special because they have won a few battles. We will show them that numbers still matter. 10,000 ships against 1. Even humans cannot survive those odds." Admiral Zixara of the Quantum Syndicate was the most cautious of the 3 leaders. Her crystalline body reflected the light from the holographic display. "We must be careful. Every report shows that humans are unpredictable. They do not fight like other species." "They are still just flesh and blood," Kretak growled. "And flesh burns just like anything else." The New Horizon was indeed different from other human ships. It was huge, built to carry families and supplies for establishing a new world. Captain Alex Turner walked through the civilian sections, watching children play in the recreation areas while their parents worked in the hydroponic gardens. Alex was a veteran of the Earth Defense Force, but commanding a colony ship was new to him. He was responsible not just for a crew but for 50,000 people who trusted him to get them safely to their new home. "Captain," called out Commander Nick Barnes, the ship's military commander. Nick was a tough Marine who had fought in border conflicts, but he looked worried. "We need to talk." They met in Alex's ready room along with Chief Engineer Ruby Phillips. Ruby was barely 30 years old, but she knew the New Horizons systems better than anyone. "What's the situation?" Alex asked. "Long-range sensors are picking up a massive fleet heading our way," Nick reported. "At least 10,000 ships from 3 different species. They'll intercept us in 6 hours. Alex felt his stomach drop. 10,000 ships? What do they want? "I think they want to make an example of us," Nick said grimly. "Word about our victories has spread. Someone wants to prove that humans can be beaten." Ruby pulled up a technical display. "Captain, we're a colony ship. We have 200 Marines and maybe 50 security officers. Against 10,000 warships, we don't stand a chance in a normal fight." "Then we don't fight normally," Alex said. "Ruby, what can we do with what we have?" "Well," Ruby said thoughtfully, "we do have 50,000 very smart people on this ship, and we've been preparing for colonial life. Every family has tools, equipment, and training for building a new world." Alex's eyes lit up. "Are you thinking what I think you're thinking?" "If we're going to die anyway," Ruby said, "we might as well try something impossible." The next 6 hours were the most intense in the ship's history. Alex made an announcement to all 50,000 colonists. He explained the situation honestly. A massive enemy fleet was coming to destroy them. They could surrender and be killed, or they could fight back. The response amazed even Alex. Nobody panicked. Nobody demanded to surrender. Instead, 50,000 people volunteered to fight for their lives and their families. Dr. Martha Webb, a colonial agriculture specialist, turned her fertilizer supplies into explosives. Teacher Bob Mitchell organized the children into communication teams. Mechanic Frank Davis and his crew began converting construction equipment into weapons. Every skill that the colonists had brought for building a new world was now being used to defend their lives. Farmers became demolition experts. Engineers became weapons designers. Even the ship's cook, an elderly woman named Rose Kelly, figured out how to turn the food processors into chemical weapon factories. When the alien fleet arrived, they expected to find a helpless colony ship filled with frightened civilians. Instead, they found something that shouldn't have existed. The New Horizon had transformed itself into a fortress. Every section of the ship had been turned into a weapons platform. The cargo bays had become missile launchers. The shuttle bays had become fighter hangars using converted mining pods. "This is War Marshal Kretak," came the transmission. "Surrender immediately and your deaths will be quick." Captain Alex Turner appeared on their screens. Behind him, they could see human families working calmly at weapon stations. Children were operating communication systems while their parents loaded ammunition. "This is Captain Turner of the human colony ship New Horizon," Alex said calmly. "We didn't ask for this fight, but you brought it to our families. That was a mistake." Kretak laughed. "You have one ship against 10,000. What can you possibly do?" "Let us show you," Alex replied. The battle began with the alien fleet, firing everything they had at the colony ship. But the humans had done something impossible. They had turned their entire ship into a single coordinated weapon system. When the aliens fired missiles, the humans didn't just shoot them down. They captured them, reprogrammed them, and sent them back. When the aliens fired energy beams, the humans used mirror systems built from colonial solar panels to redirect the beams into other alien ships. Every attack was not just blocked, but turned against the attackers. The alien fleet found themselves fighting their own weapons. Commander Nick Barnes coordinated the military response from the bridge, but the real genius came from the civilians. Librarian Nina Walsh had memorized every technical manual on the ship and was directing repairs faster than the aliens could cause damage. Farmer Jack Stevens led boarding parties using agricultural tools that had been converted into combat gear. His team of colonists moved through captured alien ships like they were harvesting crops, systematically taking control of every system. The children, led by 12-year-old Jenny Price, were running the communication systems. They intercepted alien battle orders and fed false information back to the enemy fleet. The alien commanders found their own ships turning against each other because their orders were being changed by human children. For 3 days, the battle raged. The alien fleet kept expecting the humans to break, to surrender, to show some sign of normal behavior. Instead, the humans fought with a coordination that defied all military theory. "This is impossible," General Voxtar screamed over the communication channel. "How are civilians fighting like professional soldiers?" "Because they're not just fighting for themselves," Alex replied. "They're fighting for their families, their future, their right to exist. And you threatened all of that." By the end of the third day, the alien alliance was in ruins. Of the 10,000 ships that had attacked, only a few hundred survived. Most of the alien fleet had been captured intact by the humans, who now had the largest space navy in galactic history. War Marshal Kretak's flagship was surrounded by human vessels. His proud alliance lay in wreckage around him. "How?" he whispered, over the communication link. "How did you do this?" "You made the same mistake everyone makes," Alex said. "You thought humans were just another species. You thought we would fight like everyone else, think like everyone else, give up like everyone else. But we're not like everyone else," continued Alex. "When you threaten our families, we don't just fight back. We become something you can't understand or defeat. We become united." The surviving alien ships limped away, carrying the story of their defeat. 10,000 warships had been destroyed or captured by a single colony ship crewed by families and farmers. As the New Horizon continued toward its destination, now escorted by hundreds of captured alien vessels, Alex stood on the bridge looking at the stars. His ship was no longer just a colony vessel. It had become a symbol of something that would echo across 3 galaxies. The message was clear. If you wanted to fight humans, you had better be prepared for them to fight back with everything they had. And what humans had was not just weapons or technology. What humans had was each other. And that, it turned out, was more powerful than any fleet in the galaxy. 1 year after the Great Battle at New Horizon, the galaxy had changed completely. Admiral Kate Sullivan stood on the command bridge of the HSV Enterprise, humanity's new flagship. The massive vessel had been built from the best technology of a dozen different species, all of whom had volunteered to help after hearing about the human victory. Kate was a calm woman in her 50s who had spent 30 years in space. She had fought pirates, explored unknown worlds, and negotiated with alien governments, but nothing had prepared her for this new responsibility. She was now the unofficial leader of the largest fleet in 3 galaxies. "Admiral, the morning briefings are ready," announced Lieutenant Commander Paul Martinez, her aide. The Enterprise's bridge was bustling with activity as officers from 20 different species worked together. "How many requests today?" Kate asked. 47 species requesting alliance agreements, Paul replied. 32 asking for protection from pirates, 18 wanting to establish trade relations, and 3 begging us not to conquer them. Kate sighed. The last category always made her sad. Despite everything humans had done to prove they were peaceful, some species still expected them to act like conquerors. "Schedule meetings with the alliance requests first," she said, "and send reassurance messages to the 3 who are afraid. Tell them we have no interest in conquest." The transformation had begun immediately after the New Horizon battle. Word of the human victory had spread faster than light-speed communications. A single colony ship had defeated 10,000 warships. The implications were staggering. Within weeks, trade routes across 3 galaxies had changed course. Ships that used to avoid human space now specifically sought it out, not because they feared humans, but because they respected them. Captain Jim Foster of the human merchant vessel, Trader's Dream, had been amazed by the change. He visited the same trading stations he had been going to for years, but now everything was different. "Before the battle, aliens would barely talk to us," Jim told his crew. "Now they're offering us the best deals, the finest accommodations, and asking for our advice on everything from engineering to philosophy." The reason was simple. Humans had proven they could defeat anyone, but they had also proven they chose not to. Instead of conquering the species that had attacked them, they had offered help and friendship. Ambassador Diana White sat in her office on Unity Station, the new diplomatic hub that had been built in neutral space. Diana had been chosen to lead humanity's diplomatic efforts because she spoke 12 alien languages and had a gift for understanding different cultures. "The key to our success," Diana explained to a group of new human diplomats, "is that we genuinely care about other species. We don't see them as resources to exploit or obstacles to overcome. We see them as potential friends." Her latest success had been mediating a dispute between the Crystal Traders and the Metal Workers Union. These 2 groups had been in conflict for centuries over mining rights. Previous mediators had tried to divide the resources fairly, but Diana had suggested something different. "Why not work together?" she had asked. "The Crystal Traders need metals for their technology. The Metal Workers need crystals for their power systems. You could help each other instead of fighting." The idea was so simple that both sides were embarrassed they hadn't thought of it themselves. Within a week, they had formed a joint mining operation that was more profitable than either of their separate efforts. Stories like this were happening across the galaxy. Humans weren't just preventing conflicts. They were finding ways to turn enemies into allies. Dr. Sarah Mitchell, now the head of the Human Xenobiological Institute, had just published her famous research paper. It was called "The Human Paradox: How a Species Conquered 3 Galaxies by Refusing to Conquer Anything." In her paper, Sarah explained what made humans different from every other species in known space. "Most species develop one primary strength," she wrote. "The Zephyrians became great warriors. The Crystallines became master lawyers. The swarm became a perfect collective. But humans developed the ability to become whatever the situation required while keeping their essential humanity." she continued. Humans don't just adapt to environments, they adapt to people. They have the unique ability to understand what other species need and find ways to provide it. This makes them incredibly valuable as allies and terrifying as enemies. The paper had become required reading in diplomatic schools across 3 galaxies. Every species wanted to understand how humans thought and why they acted the way they did. Meanwhile, Captain Brian Turner, Alex Turner's younger brother, was commanding the HSV Peacekeeper on a routine patrol near the old Zephyrian border. Brian had joined the space service after hearing about his brother's victory at New Horizon. Captain, we're receiving a distress signal, announced his communications officer, Lieutenant Amy Brooks. It's coming from a Zephyrian merchant vessel. Zephyrians? Asked Brian. Are you sure? Yes, sir. They're under attack by raiders, 3 ships against 1. Brian didn't hesitate. Set course for the Zephyrian ship. Maximum speed. His crew looked surprised. The Zephyrians had been enemies just a year ago. Their fleet had been part of the alliance that tried to destroy the New Horizon. Sir, said his tactical officer, are we really going to help them? Of course we are, Brian replied. They're in trouble, and we're in a position to help. That's what we do. The Peacekeeper arrived just as the Zephyrian ship's shields were failing. The raiders were small, fast vessels that specialized in attacking merchant ships. They scattered when they saw the human warship approaching. This is Captain Brian Turner of the HSV Peacekeeper, he broadcast. You will cease your attack immediately and surrender, or we will disable your ships. The raiders tried to run, but human ships were faster and better armed than anything the pirates had. Within minutes, all 3 raider vessels were captured. The Zephyrian merchant captain Thokran appeared on Brian's screen. He looked shocked and confused. Human captain, Thokran said slowly. Why did you help us? Our people tried to destroy your colony ship. Brian smiled. That was your military, not you. You're just a merchant trying to make a living. Besides, good neighbors help each other. Thokran was quiet for a moment. Good neighbors, he repeated. Yes, I think I understand. That evening, Thokran sent a message to his home world describing what had happened. A human ship had risked itself to save Zephyrian lives, asking for nothing in return except that they be good neighbors. The message spread through Zephyrian space faster than their government could control it. Soon, ordinary Zephyrian citizens were demanding to know why their leaders had tried to destroy such honorable people. Similar stories were happening everywhere. Human ships were responding to distress calls from former enemies, protecting weak species from bullies and offering aid to anyone who needed it. Back on the Enterprise, Admiral Kate received a report that made her smile. The Galactic Council had voted unanimously to establish the new Galactic Accord, a system where species could maintain their independence while working together for mutual benefit. It's remarkable, said Council Representative Vex Nari during a video conference. In 1 year, humans have accomplished what we spent 5,000 years trying to achieve. You've created genuine peace. We didn't create anything, Kate replied. We just showed that it was possible to be strong and kind at the same time. The new Galactic Accord was different from anything that had existed before. Instead of being based on fear or military might, it was based on mutual respect and genuine cooperation. Humans served as protectors and mediators, but they didn't rule over anyone. Species that joined the Accord kept their governments, their cultures, and their independence. In exchange, they agreed to help each other and follow basic principles of fairness and non-aggression. The results were amazing. Trade flourished as species shared technology and resources. Conflicts that had lasted for centuries were resolved through peaceful negotiation. Scientific discoveries accelerated as different species worked together. At the center of it all were the humans, serving as the glue that held everything together. They weren't rulers or conquerors. They were the galaxy's best neighbors. Commander Matt Johnson of the patrol ship HSV Guardian was returning from a routine mission when he received an emergency call. A Zephyrian research vessel had suffered engine failure and was drifting toward a dangerous asteroid field. "This is Commander Johnson," he broadcast. "We're changing course to assist you." The Zephyrian captain, Vexmar, was one of the survivors from the original battle with Jake Morrison's ship. He had spent months in a prison camp expecting to be executed or enslaved. Instead, the humans had fed him, given him medical care, and eventually released him with a new ship and a message of friendship. He had never understood why. Now, as he watched the human ship risk itself to save his crew, he finally understood. "Commander Johnson," Vexmar said over the radio, "why do you always help us, even after everything that happened?" Matt's response became famous throughout the galaxy. It was recorded and broadcast on every major news network, and eventually became the motto displayed on every human vessel. "Because that's what good neighbors do," Matt said simply. "And we're all neighbors out here among the stars."